rock goes back to 1984 or 5 when I was a freshman in college. And there's a much documented story of me meeting a kid at a juvenile detention center, a kid named Bruce. And Bruce's dad was a drug dealer and his mom was a prostitute. And God kind of used that to speak to me to say, you've been really, really blessed, and put a call on my life. I didn't know what it was at the time. I was just 19, but I knew that I needed to be prepared for whatever that was. So I spent the next 7 years getting my credentials, so to speak. So I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I worked at several places with troubled kids. I worked at a psychiatric hospital, a boys ranch, runaway shelter, just all kind of different places, because I had to pay my way through school too. So in the process of doing that, I began to realize that there were a lot of kids out there and a lot of great ministries out there, kids who had needs, but those who weren't so pleasant sometimes, nobody really wanted them. So I understood that those young men had gone through a terrible time, and some of their behaviors were a result of having gone through that. And so my heart's desire kind of became to reach kids who nobody else wanted. And the idea rolled around in my head until finally I went to talk to a juvenile judge, and he's no longer with us, but I said, hey Judge, I'd like to open a home for kids who have difficulties. And he said, well, you really don't have what it takes. You need a gimmick. You need to be some kind of an athlete or an actor or have a bunch of money or be tied with the church. And he said, you'll never be able to do it, but it's a nice idea, thanks. And when I left the judge's chambers, I got out in the hall, and in my mind, I punched him in the face, and I said, you watch, you just watch. And so that gave me more fire to get things going. So I was blessed, had all this experience, and the day that I finished my master's degree, someone hired me to go to work in a private practice as an associate. And it was a great opportunity, because not only was I doing what I enjoyed, and that was going into the homes of families who were having problems and helping kids get on track, but this guy was doing martial arts. I wasn't any good at that, but I was held a bag pretty well. And we did counseling and martial arts, and we were working with kids who had lots of trouble, and they started asking me if they could go home with me over and over and over. And I knew that those kids were not going to make it in the environment that I was leaving them in. So I was out riding my bike one day, and I saw this building that had been abandoned out in the country. It was about 5 or 6 acres. The building had been abandoned, and it had been a recreation center at one point. And I thought, wow, I could take that building and maybe buy it or lease it from these folks, and we could start taking some of these kids in. I had already, by that time, I had one kid committed suicide, another had committed a murder, and just on and on and on. And I felt like I really had to do something to help get some of these young men out of their environment.